Hello, my beautiful PhD friends. So today we're going to talk about probably one of the most requested videos on this channel so far, which is how to write the perfect PhD research proposal. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification because I'm going to talk about everything I've learned through doing a PhD, spending 11 years in a postdoc, and I'm going to tell you all of the dirty little secrets that other people can't tell you because they're still in the system. All right, let's get on with the content. Okay, a PhD research proposal. Now, not every university requires you to do a PhD research proposal. A proposal is kind of a document that is typically about 2,000 to 4,000 words long, and you submit it to a PhD board and they say, yes, this person is capable of doing a PhD because they have demonstrated that they understand the field they're going into, they understand the knowledge gap, they as a person with the skills they bring to this research proposal match perfectly, they are academic enough and they've demonstrated enough skills that we are confident that they will ultimately make us look good, right? That is the main thing, which is making the university or the research department look good because you are capable. And really that's what this PhD proposal is about. It's not about demonstrating what you will find, because you don't know that. The nature of research is that you kind of explore a question, you don't just dig until you find knowledge, or you can't predict what you're actually going to find. You know, that's not what research is. So really this document, if people are being honest, it's about providing the research department or the PhD admissions team with confidence. Okay, so throughout all of these sort of tips and these sections that I'm going to talk about, and there's 5 sections or 5 things that I really think you need to cover, you are aiming to convince these people, you know, they should get a feeling, right, from your document. So the document contains words and figures and tables, but when they read it, they should get a feeling of confidence. And that is ultimately what this document should try its hardest to achieve. And I'll talk about that, you know, as we go through the 5 sections, but that's the outcome, right? Is that someone looks at this, goes, this person knows what they're doing, they're a great researcher, they look like they've got a lot of potential to make our department even better. Let's get him on a PhD scholarship. So now let's have a look at all of the different steps. Now, 2,000 to 4,000 words isn't a lot, but check with the specific university guidelines because they may allow you more or they may not, you know, they may allow you to include appendices and all that sort of stuff. But the first thing in this document should be a literature review. Okay, now not a massive one, like in a thesis, a literature review is about 20,000 words anyway, right? Is it that much? It's a lot. It's like 20 pages, so probably not that much, but it's, you know, it's a lot of words. So what we're doing is like a mini literature review. What you need to demonstrate to the team looking at this is that you have not just on a whim decided to study this certain thing, but rather you do have kind of a base knowledge of the field you're going into. And so a literature review should be completely referenced, never just like write out exactly what's in the papers that you're reading. And also go check out my other video on how to write a literature review, because the kind of same stuff in a very sort of high level way apply to this section. So go check that out. I'll put the links wherever they appear. Okay, so a literature review should go through the major processes, the major theories, the major understandings, and the major theories of the field that you're entering. So it's good to start, what I like to do is start very, very broad and niche down. And in this case, you're going to niche down very quickly. So my research field was renewable energy. So that's where I talked about renewable energy and depleting fossil fuels. And then we get lower and lower and lower until you look at solution processed solar cells is where I ended up. So we needed to go all the way down very quickly. And that's what you need to do as well. you need to understand that this isn't going to be a comprehensive document. So just speak with a research supervisor to help guide which bits are the most important for this research proposal. Now that brings me on to the kind of the next bit, which is feel free to reach out to someone before you start this process. Like when you think, I want to do a PhD and I need to submit a research proposal, have a look for academics in universities that you want to go to who would fit well with the question you think you are going to ask. They'll help you sort of in this initial process with the literature. Look, to be honest with you, a lot of these people actually have like documents and reference managers and printouts of papers that you could probably just sort of like absorb from them without having to go and search the literature too deep. And so yeah, go do that. I need water. So there we have it. That's the literature review component. And the important thing is you're setting the foundations for the next part, which is so very important, which is the knowledge gap. Okay, so the second part is the knowledge gap. So you've just laid the foundations, what is currently known about your field and your area of study. And like I said, reach out to a researcher and an academic that you want to be your supervisor, and they should help you kind of understand what's the most important things to include. Now, the knowledge gap. What special insight are you hoping to get, right? Once again, going back to the filling this panel of academics with confidence that you know what you're doing, you need to be able to identify the gap in the knowledge that is currently in the literature. Now that can be relatively hard to define and it can be a bit fluid throughout your PhD as you find stuff, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, you have to become crystal clear on the research question, right? That will fill the PhD panel with so much more confidence than you saying, you know, maybe it's going to be in this area. I'm going to sit down and, you know, do questionnaires or do research in this area. You need to be clear on what your contribution to the field will be at the end of the 3 to 4 years of PhD. Now, what this does is it helps, give confidence, but also this is where you should think about the preliminary or the provisional title of your thesis. Now, I know it's a long way away to actually like producing a thesis, but if you can express in about, let's say 15 words, what your research will be on, that is going to help so much for the next steps. And also it will help you work out what your literature review should cover. And it should flow naturally. So literature review, there should be kind of a natural kind of feeling, a progression to, okay, now this is where the gap is, and this is why I need to be in this research program. So what is significant about your work should be able to be expressed in about 15 words. And once again, speak to a supervisor about this. They will help mold those 15 words, but they're going to be the kind of hook that you're going to hang everything else off. And it can take a while to get a succinct 15 words. But here's the important thing. Do not go for fancy, clever words. Instead, just focus on field-specific terminology that is plainly expressed. All right, so we don't want fancy words that are just going to confuse people, because remember, the people that are looking at your research proposal may not be in the area that you are going to end up doing your studies in. So plain, simple, give it to your family members, give it to someone outside of academia. Can they at least get a gist of what you're talking about? If not, then rework that title. But yes, number 2, knowledge gap. What is significant, what is new, what is novel that you're going to produce or that you predict you're going to produce based on the knowledge gap and the information that is already out there. The third part that's really important is the how. And remember, the how isn't just like, I'm going to do some questionnaires, or I'm going to look through the literature, or I'm going to read some stuff and report on it. Like, it has to fill the research panel with confidence. Now, the thing is, you may change your methodologies as you go through, as every good scientist should. But early on, you need to settle in on what will actually work based on what has been done in the past in your literature review. So this is a great way of talking about anything special or new you bring in terms of methodology. It may be that no one has done this in a certain way, and the research group that you're joining can now do it in a new way. There's a new instrument, there's a new technique, there's a new insight into the methodology aspect. And that's where you kind of have to think about how, like, the nuts and bolts of how you will actually get an answer to your research question. You may have to include ethical aspects. So in the sciences, I didn't have to do any animal studies or anything, so I had no ethical sort of issues or requirements. But you may, if you're dealing with animals, if you're dealing with questionnaires with people, if you're doing psychology sort of things, experiments, then you need to put in the how that you understand about these ethical aspects as well. And it may just be a couple of sentences on how you're going to do that, but that needs to, once again, fill this panel with confidence. The fourth thing comes down to you. Why you? Why should this panel get you out of all of the other people that may have applied to do a similar thing? And this is where you really have to sell yourself. And it's probably one of the hardest things you need to do. In the States, in the US, the culture is not of boasting, but one of promotion, self-promotion, confident expression of someone's special skills. However, in the UK and Australia and other cultures, it can seem a little bit garish and a bit gross to kind of put yourself out there. In Australia, we have like the tall poppy syndrome, where people love cutting down successful people. And it can mean that a lot of people don't do this bit very well. But it doesn't just mean like you as a person. Like, what skills have you learned up until right now that can help you answer this question? What do you bring? What special combination? Now, the thing about science is that it's becoming increasingly interdisciplinary, which means that there's Venn diagrams of like physics and chemistry and nanotechnology in my case. And I sat right in the middle, so I could say that I've got experience in all of these areas, and my PhD sits right in the middle of that. And I'm uniquely positioned to do that because of the honors and the master's projects that I decided to undertake. And so really it's about convincing people that not only is the research great, but it's you are the right person to be doing it, no one else. And feel free to boast a little bit. Like, it's okay to be like, and I'm good at this. I know that I've got the skills that's required to do this properly. What experience have you got also goes hand in hand with the research environment. So I kind of look at it like this, like you have all of these special skills, but the research environment that you're entering, so the research group, the research sort of department that you're going to enter, what combination of skills have they got, and tools and methodologies and special equipment do they have, which means that it will catalyze your power and your momentum and your ability to succeed. Like, that's what it comes down to, remember. So how, with your individual kind of experience and combination of skills, if I was to place you and plant you in a certain research environment, how is that going to make you so much more better? And speak to the research group that you're thinking of joining, speak to the department and ask what skills they have, what equipment they have, if they've applied for any special equipment or invested in anything that makes them stand out in their sort of area, and you can use that in your research proposal to be like, not only am I just the right person to do this, but this is the perfect place to do it because nowhere else in the world has this combination of skills or academics or whatever it is, and together we're going to be a winner. And number 5, and probably one of the last things, is all about timing and potentially budget, right? So here, all we're trying to do is fill them with confidence that you have an understanding of how long things take and that you have a couple of risk management stop points. So it's like at the end of the first year, I should have achieved, you know, an understanding of the area of the field, of the research field. I should have produced a literature review. I should have understood all of the techniques I'm using and demonstrated expertise. And that looks like this, you know, in terms of I would have generated enough data to go towards a conference or a poster presentation at a conference. Like those sort of things are what they're looking for. And then like, you know, you can word them, right? This is the little trick that some people do, is you can word them quite openly. Now, for example, my research key performance indicator was I'm going to produce a first generation transparent electrode. Now, first generation is open to interpretation, right? So it means that if I produce an electrode that satisfies all of the criteria that I want, that is first generation. Boom. So I have to make one electrode to satisfy that. Now, clearly, you know, you don't want to like piss fat around and not actually deliver, because that will just make your PhD harder on yourself later on. But what it does do is give you a bit of flexibility, all right? So use terms like I'm going to create a first generation solar cell. I'm going to create a first attempt, or maybe not attempt, but yeah, you know what I mean? Like use those sort of words. I'm going to complete my preliminary study on something. Like use open language, which means you're not locked into numbers and figures early on, because yeah, you'll just trip yourself up. And then of course you can say later on in the next 6 months, we're going to produce a second generation solar cell, a third generation, you know, like it just means that everything's moving in the right way, and that you have thought about the process and the steps that you need to go through to get to the end result, which is, right, remember in academia, only 2 things matter: papers and grant money. So if you can say that I'm going to work towards a certain number of papers, which should, you know, my research should result in 2 papers in Q1 journals or A-class journals, and I will be applying for different grants. You know, I've identified that these grants could potentially fit in with the research. Put that in. They love it. They absolutely love that stuff because it's what makes academia go round. Papers and grants are the currency of the academic world. And if you say you're going to do that, they're going to love it. Trust me. Okay, so there are the 5 things that are going to make an absolute killer research proposal, with all of the little tips and tricks inside there as well. So let me know in the comments what you think a research proposal should be. Let other people know about your research, how it sort of translated, how it differed from the proposal. I think is also really interesting, because, you know, research shifts and changes, and it's so important that it does, because it means that, you know, you're doing research, you're not just following a path with, you know, blindly. And so yes, those are the top 5 things that should be in your research proposal. But remember, ultimately, it is to fill the panel that is looking over this with confidence that you know what you're doing, that the environment you're going to be placed in will catalyze your outputs, and that you understand the research field and the knowledge gap that you are uniquely qualified to fill. All right, if you've liked this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe as well, because I think next week I'm going to do the general tips for writing a research proposal. You know, storytelling, the structure, how you make it friendly but kind of impactful for a PhD admin panel. So yeah, I'm going to do that. So subscribe, because I'm going to update this topic regularly, because I think it's really important. And yeah, also go check out Publish, Perish, or Podcast, which is my podcast where I talk about early career research with two of my best friends in the academic world, and we have a ball. And we've just published our 100th episode as well, so go check out that. That would be awesome. All right, I shall see you in the next video.